Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Kane. Our first item room contained Lil Chubby, and I think a lot of you know who've watched this video that I have a few select items which I pick up just because I like them, and they're not maybe necessarily good or even that useful, but the item penalty is so low, I feel like sometimes I can afford to be just a little bit nostalgic and pick up the items that I like because I think they're cool and not pick them up because I think they're good. And in this particular case, Lil Chubby does fall in that category of items I think that are really cool and really cute, but aren't maybe necessarily that good, or maybe in a lot of cases you don't really even need it. But he does have some uses, and I think I would like to point out some of his uses. I mean, it's not too terribly complicated. Obviously, the best part about this is that he can shoot through multiple enemies, and that's supremely helpful, especially early on, especially against enemies which split into multiple enemies. Just having that penetrative shots does help out with clearing the room somewhat, and he doesn't do too terrible of damage. Maybe the most useful or maybe the most damaging way that you can use Lil Chubby is if you have an enemy right next to the wall, because he tends to stick to the wall that he gets to and he still deals damage while he's on top of the enemy. If there's an enemy that's hugging the wall and you can actually target it somewhat accurately, then Lil Chubby does actually do a really significant amount of damage. So in those cases he might be a little bit above average, but in a lot of other cases he's just there, and I can't hate on him too much. He's still more useful than most familiars. I would say familiars like Brother Bobby or maybe Sisters Maggie are, yes, less useful just because they only do have that base damage. I guess they do contribute to the conjoined transformation, so that has to be worth something, but besides that, as familiars on their own, they really don't provide much benefit. At least Lil Chubby has that benefit of killing multiple enemies at once, and you never know, maybe he does help you out by destroying that enemy on the other side of the room, because he does have unlimited range as well, so that all of that is just in favor of Lil Chubby. But I think the biggest part about him is that he's a very nostalgic item. He's been in the game since the Flash version. He was much better in that version of the game as he is now, and that's just due to how the game processes information and just how fast it takes and things like that. He's a bit faster, which means because he's faster, he deals less damage overall, or at least I feel like that's the reason, whereas in the Flash game he was a bit slower, which means he had more time to stand on top of the enemy, and of course that did deal a lot more damage. But Lil Chubby aside, later on I did find some of the really great items, and you noticed me going in the Angel Deal route, and the main reason for that was just because at first I didn't have enough health. I didn't really feel comfortable going by the spikes to pick up a subpar item. Now, if one of those items was something like Brimstone, I would risk it, because there were spikes surrounding the item. Of course, spikes do deal 1 full heart of damage, and then you take 1 heart of damage when you take the item, and there's always that possibility of killing yourself, and I just didn't feel like risking it for subpar items. I think one of them was a Razor Blade, and the other one was Lil Delirium, and both of those items are, well, Razor Blade is actually pretty good, but Lil Delirium can be quite delirious to pick up, because he can transform into a bomb fly and then explode in your face, and that's never fun. But even the Razor Blade isn't too terribly good, so I just figure I'm gonna go the Angel Deal route. They have been buffed, so I feel like it's a much more viable strategy. If you have a Devil Deal which you don't like, or maybe you don't feel comfortable taking, you don't lose on too much if you go via the Angel Deal route, just because there are more opportunities there now, you have more items to choose from, and in this particular case it did allow us to get Flight. Of course, there's a side benefit of just getting more points by fighting the angel statues, and that's also probably a good idea. But in this particular case, I think I fought or maybe even killed 3 angel statues, which gave me something like 1,000 points in total, which is nothing to be ashamed for, and especially when you consider that the items that I've gotten from the angel deals were just as good as the items that you normally get from the devil deals, and of course that is Flight plus Holy Light, and Holy Light is one of the best damaging items that you can get, especially if you have enough high luck, and I think at 3 and later on we get to 5, that's significant enough that we're actually able to take advantage of the item, at least to the point that we can. And of course having a low tear delay also helps, just because there's the higher quantity of tears on the screen, which means with more tears there's more chances of the Holy Light shots actually hitting, and that of course just deals even more damage. So at this point, we do have a few things we have to worry about. So we're pretty much set for the damage department. Magic Marsh, we have Flight for utility, we have DPS items, we have some consumable items in the case of Humbling Bundle, and that's all great, but we really need to consider, because this is a Mom's Food Daily, there's always decisions to be made. So we have an AWAS rune, so, you know, we can use that, we can go do Boss Rush because we had Mama Mega, use the AWAS rune and go to the next floor. But you can see that there, or maybe you can't see it yet, but there is gonna be a sacrifice room on this floor. Here it is. So how do we approach it from a position where it's gonna give us the more points? And I feel like that's a pretty difficult question to answer. Now, if we had a teleport card, it would definitely be a better idea to teleport out, go back to the sacrifice room and do it after we beat boss rush, and that's exactly what happens. But let's imagine that the teleport card didn't drop. So what can we do? So we can either go to the sacrifice room, or we can beat boss rush and use an AWAS rune. One thing to consider here is that when you use an AWAS rune, or at least what you would want to do is use it either in the boss room or in the boss rush room, and that just means that you can't go back after you've entered it. So that means if it is a crawl space, we've already kind of negated all possibility of getting a good score just because we can't go further. But if it isn't, so if we do go to the next floor, we do boss rush, then we do one more floor, we get something like 2000 points in exploration, but we're really looking either for another AWAS rune or we're looking for another sacrifice room. And with 21 keys and basically no guarantees, no things like room bags or maybe even other consumable dropping items, I feel like the chances of getting another AWAS rune or maybe even the shovel or anything of the sort are too low to kind of guarantee or wager our chances on. So I just figured it's gonna be a better idea once we do get the teleport card is to go out and then go do the sacrifice room. So that's it from this perspective. But of course, like I said, if you imagine we didn't have the teleport card, then we really don't have a choice. There's basically the only opportunity of us going to well, actually, no, wait, let me think about it. Yeah, going to the boss rush gives us something like 4,500 points, which is obviously great, and then we can do another floor and we get something like 2,000, 3,000 points in total, and there's the possibility of getting another floor and another possibility of getting the sacrifice room. So I feel like those chances, or at least we're gonna get more points on average if we go in that direction, as opposed to if we just go and take like 4 damage penalty, go to the dark room and try to beat the lamb. And while the lamb does give you those 4,000 points that you would miss out on boss rush otherwise, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get there. I mean, there is the guarantee that you're gonna get there, but there's always the possibility of you dying just because the dark room is such a harder floor. It depends on the run, it depends on the circumstances, but in this particular case, I feel like it would have been the better decision to use the AWAS rune, or at least bank on it, leading you to the next floor, and then hope for a sacrifice room or maybe another rune drop. And even if that didn't happen, I still feel like we would be competent enough. You know, we might end up with something like 26,000 points as opposed to something like 28,000 points, which is not too terribly on the low side, which means that we still have the chance to compete with the best of with those who went to the dark room. But we always had the possibility of getting more scores. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's quite a conundrum, and I feel like it's something that should definitely be calculated in order to determine what the best choice of plan is. But in this particular case, just because there were so many items and because so many possibilities were possible, I just felt like there really wasn't the best way of going about it. And you can imagine my relief when the full card dropped, because I knew that when I do boss rush, I can teleport back out, go do the sacrifice room, and this is pretty much gonna be a good choice no matter what, just because I get basically the best of both worlds. Using the one AWAS rune would leave me in a bad position, and since there's only one floor left of having the chance of getting a sacrifice room, I felt like that wouldn't be it. But besides that, I actually played extremely well on this daily. I only got hit twice. One was from a bad trip pill, which is not something you can really control, and the other one was from the angel statue I fought right now, and of course the sacrifice room damage. So my damage penalty is still on the relatively high side, but all in all, I did only get hit for 2 full hearts of damage, which is really exciting because I've never thought I could actually go through a whole run by only getting hit twice, and that is quite remarkable. Or at least when you think about it, I only got hit once because the bad trip really isn't my fault. So we did finish in the 13th place, we did get pretty far, 37,000 points for a mom daily, we did complete all the objectives, we got a lamp bonus, we got the rush bonus, our expression bonus wasn't too terrible, especially because of Spelunker's hat, we weren't too invested in using our bombs, we knew where to use them, and of course prior to that we also had enough opportunities with the Answers runes and things like that to find those secret rooms. So all in all, a really enjoyable daily, a pretty strong one, not too hard, not too difficult, but of course it did have some intricacies and decisions that you have to keep in mind if you want to get a good score. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.